It's the Brad and John Show.
And this is the C Block, the Charlie Block, and the date today is Thursday, March 13th. Okay, John, there is a word that when I ever hear this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, some comms guy wrote this. And you know what that word is?
Oh, what is it?
Stakeholder. Anytime I hear the word...
Oh, yeah. I'm a big stakeholder guy.
Anytime I hear the word stakeholder, I think to myself, okay, this is PR BS. This is some comms guy or some PR flack wrote this. And what's interesting, I want to give you the convergence of two topics that we've talked about in the past, and they're going to come together in a third topic, okay? The two topics are this corporate speak stuff. And the other topic is John Fetterman, okay? And then the third topic is Francis Howell, Friends of Francis Howell. What is this group that's trying to get that are belly aching about somebody stole our signs? What is that?
Francis Howell families. And the fourth topic is Izzy Imig.
Well, that's coming up. Okay. Yesterday, there was an interesting article on John Fetterman, and essentially the headline is, Fetterman, let me bring this up, I will get it word for word. Fetterman urges Democrats to talk like, quote, regular people instead of ranting about oligarchs, okay? There's another word he picks up, that if you talk about an oligarch, people go like, your average Joe is going like, what's an oligarch, okay? When I read, and I'll give you a perfect example, okay? I don't know if I can find it here real quick. The thing I got from the Francis Howell, let me see if I can find this real quick. If I can read one paragraph, I should have saved this so I can get to it in a hurry. This thing from Francis Howell, Friends of Francis Howell, to me is talking like Fetterman is telling people not to talk. Get what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying, yeah.
Do you detect that at all?
No, I think their email is pretty well laid out, actually. And I have it in front of me, Brad.
Okay, I'm not saying it's not well laid out. I'm saying, here's my point, John. I think it's too well laid out. That's my problem.
Yeah, and what you said yesterday, sorry to interrupt, but what you said yesterday, we talked about it at the end of C Block on March 12th, is that you want to hear from candidates or groups about how they're educating kids in the classroom.
Which they don't talk about.
You don't want to hear platitudes. You don't want to hear high-minded talk about cultural wars. You want to hear about the direct ramifications of what has been taught and where students are now. That's your point, right?
Exactly. Because, and we talked about the fact that you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at. They talk about 4 different things. I won't go through them again. Not one of them talks about the kids are going to learn better math skills because in the country in the world right now, the United States math scores are like 32nd or something like that. Okay, I read you one paragraph, and this is where I come to the Fetterman thing. District committee policy was updated, clarifying district committee roles. Additionally, your conservative majority has prioritized including more community and stakeholder voices in committee roles. Okay, that's double talk to me. You know, they could easily say, look, here's what we've done. We've essentially made it easy for people to find out what's going on at the school board meetings. Isn't that essentially the same thing?
I know. Actually, I read that paragraph as saying we're including more old people and community voices instead of just teachers union people.
But once again, they're saying that's sort of what I'm saying. They're essentially saying, look, we're giving you this great scoop. We're not giving you anything biased. You know, see, why can't people talk like that? And the funny part of that is, this is John Fetterman. Let me go back to the John Fetterman article. He talks about this, that, you know, remember when I had a Democratic friend of mine the other day that I talked about the fact that the Raging Cajun Serpent Head, Mr. James Carville, when he said that Kamala Harris was a 7th string candidate, which I thought was really funny. Here's a guy who's a Democrat, and he's calling the Democratic candidates a 7th string candidate, which, you know, when you think about it, that's pretty damning, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Because you played sports before. typically on most sports teams, depending upon what it is, like especially on a football team, you've got first, second, and third string. Once you're past third string, that's like the JV team, like the Obama would talk about, right?
Yeah, they're lucky to have a jersey.
Right. They don't even get the dress out. And he said, okay, here's the quote from Fetterman. He says, I would just ask Democrats, start talking like a regular person. Most people are not sure what an oligarch is, And he says, he goes on to say, there's also another little secret too. Democrats, we like billionaires if they're going to give to our causes, to our party as well. So in other words, he's being honest. Chuck Schumer and especially Bernie Sanders is saying, we don't want these billionaires running our country. But yet when a billionaire puts money in Chuck Schumer's campaign coffers or Bernie Sanders' campaign coffers, do you think they're complaining about that? No.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I mean, but don't you see to a certain extent this Francis Howell thing has gotten too slick? It almost looks like it's put together by you.
Yeah, I get that. First of all, thank you for the compliment. And second of all, I think that somebody in the group is probably like, hey, we need to look like a professional campaign. We can't look like a bunch of amateurs. And we need to run something that looks professional. Now, that's not the Brad Hildebrand school of put an advertisement on the side of a bus upside down so that people call you. Like, it's a completely different approach. I'm guessing that Francis Howell Families wants to look professional and have a cohesive message. At the proverbial end of the election day, you just got to turn out your people. And Brad, I'll repeat what you and I debated yesterday, which is I think Francis Howell Families knows that talking about cultural issues is going to drive more people to the polls than saying, hey, we need better math and science scores. Hey, your stupid little fat kids aren't learning very well. We're going to focus on reading and writing and arithmetic.
Okay, John, off the top of my head, if they called me up and say, Brad, we heard you complaining about our language and we're sort of being sort of democratic kind of verbiage that we're using our ads and things like that. Do an ad for me, okay? Right off the top of my head, John. You want me to do an ad for Francis Howell Families?
I do, yeah.
Okay, right off the top of my head. Hey, you got kids in Francis Howell School District? You know what? You're working hard, and we know that the times are tough right now. I mean, come on, a dozen eggs is $12. So here's what we want to impress upon you. Your kids may be young now. They may be in one of our fine middle schools or grade schools or high schools, but in 10 or 20 years, they could be making a ton of money, and they could be funding your vacation home down at Lake of the Ozarks. But that's only if they get a good education. If they get a crappy education like they're getting right now, you're going to be supporting them. But if they get a good education, they're going to be supporting you. So when you go to the polls on April 8th, think about not tomorrow, think about not this weekend, think about 20, 30 years into the future when your kids are doctors and lawyers because they got a good education for Francis Howell. Or think about that what's coming out of your kid's mouth into a microphone is, do you want fries with that? Vote yes for Sturm and Cook April 8th, and your kids will take care of you 30 to 40 years from now. Paid for by Citizens for Brad Hildebrand. So what do you think of that ad, John?
It's pretty good. I think it could do a better job tearing down the NEA candidates and showing the difference between Cook, Sturm, and the others. But yeah, I'm being nitpicky. It sounds great, Brad.
But the idea being is people go like, and once again, this is like advertising 101. It's like, hold on a minute, let me think about that. My kid, if he got a good education, he could get a good job and he could buy me a new car 20 or 30 years from now.
Yeah, kids are should definitely their top priority is to be used for labor, I think.
Okay.
I mean, why else would you want to have kids? Brad, I heard that anybody, not just candidates, but even businesses, nonprofits, anyone, that they can get free 10-second commercials on Westplex 107.1 if they sign up for the Westplex Chamber. That can't be true, can it?
You can get free advertising. Yes, it's true, John.
And you get a 10-second clip. And by the way, you can't possibly sign up for the Westplex Chamber for free, can you? Or where could you go if you wanted to do that, Brad?
Westplex.com. That's it right there.
And for only $75, what else do you get if you join for $75, Brad?
I'll chauffeur you around in my 2010 car, which has 300,000 miles on it.
And if you decline that, what else can you get?
John, you get all sorts of stuff. You have to go on Westplex.com and look at the membership page, and John everything that John's talking about is right there. See, the interesting part of this is, I know, John, you're going to roll your eyes, but I believe in the as the tide rises, so do all boats. And I think it's so...
I haven't heard you say that before.
I think it's so sad. Okay, John's making fun of me again this morning. John, I'm keeping score. I think it's up to about 42-0 here. Brad makes no fun of John, but John makes fun of Brad. Okay.
Well, yesterday you pointed out that I didn't make fun of you yesterday, so I'm overcompensating.
You're overcompensating. Okay, the Izzy Imig thing. Okay. Is this story bizarre or what? Now, let me get some background. You know more. Do you know her personally?
I don't know. I've never met her.
Okay. I've heard that she's a veteran. She was in one of our armed forces. Is that true?
Yeah, I mentioned that yesterday. She was born in Baghdad, I believe, and she is a military veteran. And I'm not sure her backstory of exactly how she got here, but she was elected to the Rockwood School Board 3 years ago, and they served 3-year terms.
Now, wasn't she one of the Mark Cox, advocated candidates? Wasn't she like the one in the conservative darlings?
I'm guessing she was. I know she was elected as part of a conservative slate. So I'm guessing if Mark Cox was doing his endorsement thing back then, she would have won that endorsement. Yeah.
And Rockwood's had, I believe it's Rockwood. Remember the gal that used to be on Tracy's station, the gal that was the teaching women how to find the rich husband. You know who I'm talking about? Remember her?
Yeah, the sugar gal. Yeah,
right.
I forgot her name, but
right,
yeah.
Right. Wasn't she on the Rockwood board as well too?
She was, and then I believe she either resigned or she wasn't reelected. I don't remember exactly how it went.
Okay, here's my question. If you know what we're talking about, Izzy Imig, who was on the Rockwood School District, it came out, was that yesterday or was it the day before? Was it Tuesday when the story hit?
A couple days ago, yeah. The news started hitting a few days ago.
That essentially she was, and they were careful to say she wasn't arrested. She got a citation, wasn't that what they said? A citation for shoplifting at a Target out in West County?
That's correct.
And then it comes out, this is the second time. Okay, here's my issue. I didn't think they cared about shoplifters anymore. I have family members in my family who worked at some, if I mention the stores, some very high-profile stores, and they talk about the fact that people would walk in and they go, okay, here's so-and-so again, and they knew these people. They were habitual shoplifters. They would come in, they'd grab, in this one case with my one family member worked at a store, high-end store, selling garments predominantly. They knew these people. They would just walk in, sometimes grab an armful of like whatever it was. They'd go and just grab an armful of clothes. Out the door they'd walk. Security guard would essentially wave to them because they were told, do not interfere, do not even bother calling the police because we don't want to have a confrontation. How did this happen that she got nailed for shoplifting? I didn't think they did this anymore.
Yeah, well, they do. And so the Post-Dispatch's most recent piece, which came out yesterday, which covered her resignation, doesn't go into great detail. The KSDK story says that back on March 4th, which would have been a week ago on Tuesday, she failed. According to them, she tried to go past, they call it, points of purchase. She got past all that, and a security officer, a loss prevention person, stopped her and was like, hey, you didn't scan a bunch of stuff. You need to go back through self-checkout. So according to this story, they gave her a free pass. She went back and paid for $700 worth of merchandise that she was originally going to walk out with.
Whoa!
But then she hit a steam cleaner and left the store without paying for the steam cleaner. So according to this story, she was caught once, went back, paid $700 worth of stuff, but still stole a steam cleaner. And that was just the incident on March 4th. And then, according to the KSTK story, she went into the Ballwin Target on Manchester Road on March 7th with a bunch of unpaid for merchandise, and she requested to repurchase the items. As if, now what I read from that, Brad, is that she knows she had been caught stealing some other stuff, so she went back to a Target and said, hey, I kind of forgot to pay for this stuff. Can I pay for this stuff? So there were two separate incidents. Now, what's curious about this, I have to point out, is that usually every couple days I go to the Chesterfield police reports because I love reading Chesterfield reports. You read all about the urbanites who come out to the outlet mall and steal stuff. I love reading the crime reports. And she was listed in the one back on March 4th that came out a couple days later. So I'm surprised that nobody from the media saw it there and immediately reported on it. So yeah, Brad, it looks like there's at least a couple incidents of her stealing.
John, you brought up an interesting point. Back in the day when there was real journalists, there were people assigned to each one of those municipalities to check the police blotter. I mean, you physically, back in the
morning,
day,
see if they notice any famous names, right?
Exactly, are just stories of interest. Physically would go to the police department because, how do I know this? Because I did this. Not that I went.
Yes, you did.
But I was the guy that typed the reports at the police department, and we used to have the reporters come in the morning and go through, this is way before the internet, go through the actual files. We'd give them the actual police reports. They'd look at it, and occasionally they'd say, can we make a copy of this? Yeah, we'd say, it's going to be a dime, and they go, okay, we can afford that kind of stuff. Nobody does this kind of journalism anymore. This story, to me, there's something more to this story. This can't, this is the kind of thing where when you find out that somebody who is like a judge is spending Friday and Saturday nights over at on the east side in the Platinum Club, and he shows up with $1,001 bills, and he sits in the front row, and you're going like, oh, it can't be the same guy. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those stories. It's like,
I do know, and this seems excruciatingly personal. Like if you're engaged in this type of behavior, whether it's dopamine chasing or whether there's some void in her life that she's filling by theft, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. But it just seems like there's something excruciatingly human and tragic going on here with Izzy. And she said she says physical and mental health that she's not running. But it's clear this is clearly a mental health issue. And maybe she just needs to step out of the spotlight for a while.
John, but here's the thing with me, and this is where John and I probably differ. To me, I want to reach out to this person and say, you know what? What can I do to help you? What's going on?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Brad. And I hope there's people around her that will do that. Hey, Francis Howell's going to reach out to me if I don't get to school pretty quickly, so I got to run, Brad.
Do you mean I can't talk about the last thing I was going to talk about?
But maybe Gary V could talk about the downfall of civilization again.
Okay, John, have a good day, and I'll put this
see you tomorrow.
I'll put this on my list for tomorrow, okay?
Okay, bye-bye.